Rather than a massive 60-hour slog where I know I'll get lost the moment I step away from the screen, here we have a concise and punchy game where being lost just comes with the package. Everhood is this amazing blend between stylistic, trippy visuals, immersive, wonderful music, a crisp, innovative combat, and themes and concepts ripe for interpretation both inside and outside of the game itself. In short, if you're looking for a novel RPG that'll constantly surprise you and one-up itself with its digital fireworks and deceptively intriguing story, this is the game for you. Beyond that, it offers multiple paths you can take if you like to play with your food and push the characters around like another certain indie RPG. Everhood is not Undertale. Everhood takes a lot of inspiration from Undertale. A lot. But it builds off of that formula in multiple ways that make the game feel incredibly fresh both mechanically and thematically. There's no progression system. Screw levels and experience points. The Guitar Hero bullet hell combat is about dodging attacks, following the beat, gauging your positioning and remaining health to maneuver properly. It's about your skill, and as the difficulty and options ramp up, the game feels more and more rewarding to play. There are no random encounters. Every fight in the game is entirely unique and scripted. There's no sense of getting bogged down by slimes and Zubats. Every confrontation has a purpose. The song-based battle system turns the fights into a triple-layered storytelling cake. The characters' attacks, their individual theme songs, and the stories behind the fights all work in tandem to deliver the experience of a musical right to your hands. The game strikes at your eyes as it is, so having a strong soundtrack and your character's motions being tied to that track creates this visceral connection that's impossible to find anywhere else. Just look at your very first fight with Frog. This song is so calm and soothing. Look at how the waves of the attacks lazily approach you. This is basically a spar. Simply watching the gameplay or listening to the music doesn't convey Everhood's impact. Look at how jaunty and fun Green Mage's theme is and how that's reflected in the movements I have to make to avoid his attacks. This is frantic. There's a sense of slowing down to catch a breath in different sections and ramping back up. He's having the time of his life, and it's such a joy to take part in it. In stark contrast, both you and Grundle aren't here out of choice. He's a servant of Professor Orange, and he's here to make you his next victim while you escape this Eggman-looking motherfucker.
You have done nothing but destroy my life. I hope you die.
His fight is a relatively slow-paced battle of attrition. The only change of pace is as my man's getting electrocuted to encourage further attack. Your movements with the controller act as an instrument, running along with the song the other character plays. The notes are all deliberately placed and lead the player through different potential paths, and as the game progresses, it feels more and more like the characters are actively targeting you as they move around. It's a work of art to see and to be a part of. The combat, the visuals, the music, they all work together to create a cohesive story in every single fight, and this game capitalizes on that more and more as the overarching plot progresses and you push further and further into this world. On top of that, I'm noticing as I focus on this section of the screen to dodge attacks, my vision gets really wavy and I struggle to focus on anything besides that part of the screen. At first, I thought it was just another trippy visual effect, but no, this is a physical symptom of immersing myself in this world. The place literally changes how you see things. I haven't said a word about the plot of the game yet, and that's for a good reason. The stuff I'm willing to tell you for most of the review is deceptively simple. You're a puppet whose arm gets stolen while you're asleep. As you search the world to find your arm, you meet different characters and learn more about the strange realm they live in. For the most part, the game is very interested in offering diversions. There's a lot of roaming around the hub world and the doors it offers you, without much guidance outside of the process of elimination. My favorite example of these diversions is the racing minigame in Carnival Corner. Along with all their individual lives and goals and schedules, most of the characters like to race in go-karts apparently. I spent 5 attempts trying to win this track, and when I did, all I got was a trophy that offered nothing for the progression. Beautiful. Meanwhile, there are these rabbits, mushrooms, gnomes, little tidbits everywhere that offer the implication that there's something much larger, something eerily wrong with this world. Getting to unravel the facts and finding more questions to ponder as you wander around lends a twisted meaning to those diversions. Back to the Undertale comparison. If that's a cheery game that turns out to be a tragic family story told in a way that challenges how we look at games, Everhood is a wacky musical that turns into a cosmic horror story that challenges how we look at challenges and meaning. As you get settled into the game and the flashy colors stop being as impressive, Everhood turns on its heel and ends up offering a lot to think about in terms of existentialism, absurdism, how we spend our time, immortality, and by the end of it, being able to stand up for what's right, even when the whole world and your own instincts think you're wrong. Huge spoilers from here on out. I cannot cover the beauty of this game's writing and lore without ripping away the chance for you to experience it for yourself. If what I've described so far is interesting to you, then I'm begging you to play it. It's only $10 on Steam at the most, and it offers tons of value for those $10. If that's not enough to convince you, or you're interested in hearing what the game makes me feel thematically, then you can keep watching, but you have been warned. There comes a time where you have to make very important decisions in the game, and it does an incredible job in using the sacrifices you have to make in order to move forward to serve as symbolization of different ideas. From burning bridges by destroying doors and cutting out toxic friends, to visualizing discipline as removing unnecessary choices from your life by fighting the menu cursor. These concepts highlight an immaculate attention to detail in different aspects of being alive outside of its obvious interest in life and death, and that attention fuels the lessons behind the game for you to learn. Before we get into those lessons, in order to even play the game, you need to leave behind your humanity, abandon your concept of time, and accept immortality. I don't see what could possibly go wrong. I would love to. At a glance, this game looks really pretentious and is trying way too hard to be thought-provoking for what its story sets up, because it is. Along with how vague the mechanics of life and death are in this world, with multiple characters genuinely threatening to kill you on multiple occasions. This game's practical plot structure feels weak, as though the devs were tripping balls while writing their trippy as balls game. But I think the emotional punches and general concept make up for the large demand in the suspension of disbelief. This focus on immortality is the crux of every single conflict in this game in one way or another, and why I think those diversions are so interesting. There's this seeping sense of meaninglessness and despair that surrounds a substantial amount of the characters in this endless world. Along with joy and community, it feels like a friendly two-fort server in TF2 that's gone on for way too many rounds. The game has gone on for so long and so little has happened outside of the little funny moments like everyone spontaneously kill binding and fucking with each other. Stuff that is so removed from the point of the game that most of the people interested in something more substantial have left. The chance to actually play the objective has long since gone by, and everyone appears content to just leave it be. Remember what I said about my eyesight? The longer I spend time in Everhood, the more I end up seeing things the way the other immortals do. The more my view gets warped to be like everyone else. Maybe I actually think this is all okay. The only respite my eyes and my head will get is if I walk away and move forward, if I get stuck too far, if I recognize that I've made a mistake, if I don't want to play the 2-4 server anymore. Since my hands hurt and I need to get back to my goth gamer girlfriend, I get to leave. Everhood makes me so happy that I have that option in the first place. Everhood uses immortality as a metaphor, as a stand-in for excessive comfort, security, and complacency, the problems with which become clear the longer you play the game. This sense of dissatisfaction starts kind of like what you'd expect. A character complaining about their work life here, a character overreacting about a spilled drink there, but things get more intense as you delve deeper on. The most striking example is Green Mage again, as you play the game's most dramatic ending. Green Mage at this point has established themselves as a really fun character, toying with you as you find them their eye and even playing games with you and the other characters. But they dial it up to 11 as you revisit Green Mage in Act 2. They're not in the Playroom as you'd expect. You open up the cellar door and creep down. Oh shit. You think this was some kind of prison. Tally marks on the walls as far as the eye can see. As Green Mage tells you their story, you come to understand that it very well might have been one. Each tally mark is a year spent in Everhood, and if you go further into the corridor, they warn you that it is a very, 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 very long one. In fact, it's so long that when you decide to turn back, the game has a tally for how many loading zones you've passed. Everyone has lived the same life, initially excited to never have to worry about dying, but about half of them come to realize that the value from life comes from the commitment that death demands, and that they've made the wrong choice in throwing away that commitment. A lack of commitment and urgency in one's actions, bouncing around from place to place, threatens to leave you laying a million bricks without ever building a single house, as you swing from diversion to diversion, hoping that one painless thing will eventually explain why you're here. Death, or an issue relative to life, is what necessitates the things we build in the first place, like how the rain and snow would necessitate a house. Everyone claims that meaning is built through the limitations surrounding your intent, as death threatens to limit the reach of someone's life. Everhood understands that we are inherently dissatisfied with the world, and that dissatisfaction is the fuel we use to create beautiful things. If we try to avoid that sense of anxiety, of dissatisfaction, then we shelter ourselves from the chances to create fulfillment for ourselves. This is why Green Mage and so many other characters are so excited to see you after Act 2 starts. The only thing left in their life is you. You see, after you get your arm back, you gain the ability to deflect attacks to where they came from in order to deal damage. Beyond being something that completely changes how you interact with the game's attacks, breathing fresh air in the game if you take that approach, choosing to do so is a rebuttal of immortality in its most brutal form. You can take the other characters' songs, their attacks, their twisted lives, and throw them back into their faces as you carve a new path through the world. All those feelings that came up earlier when describing what makes the combat so engaging as a story and to play return with even more strength and a new tinge of sorrow as you grant their souls the freedom they don't realize they need. Yeah, that's the wording I'm going to use. Freeing their souls. I don't know what I can get away with yet on YouTube. Haha. The pathing of attacks different enemies have makes more and more sense as you use the deflects, and it turns initially simple fights into surprisingly hard ones. Fuck you, trash can. Fuck you, Scott Coffin. You know what you did. But what about the people who do realize immortality is this dehumanizing, destructive idea? Why do they need to wait for you? There are two things in Everhood that can kill anyone. Red's arm and the incinerator. The incinerator appears to be just a one-off plot point at first, something Gold Pig threatens you with in Act 1, but it serves to show the distinction between someone who faces death and someone who solemnly seeks it out. Facing death and adversity is celebrated in the game through the lens of the characters fighting off Red, fighting off the protagonist, rewarding them with a chance to experience the fullest versions of themselves in new fights you couldn't experience without your arm. Characters who have sought death out through the incinerator are the opposite. Do you remember Gasser here in the bar? He's one of several lost spirits that wander Everhood after using the incinerator. Their features are stripped away, left with twisted, pale faces and shapeless bodies as they forego their capacity to enact themselves onto the world after staring at the truth of it for so long without doing anything about it. The truth that this world is meaningless. You, Red, didn't get to save them. They have torn themselves away from their friends and their identities. Luckily for them, death was not the end. They recruit you to save the people of the world from their purgatory. Things come to a head between these factions when those Red killed seek reconciliation, demanding answers from you. The newly freed souls look like the other lost spirits at first, nearly indistinguishable from the ones that sent you on your quest. As they attack you, as they find something to struggle against, their identities become clearer, and you get to see how they really feel. It's important to note that this part of the game isn't about glorifying death about the end. It's about what the meaning of the end brings to people's lives. During Act 2, you function as an obstacle for the characters to overcome as you try to correct their mistakes and save them. You, at this point, are the antagonist, and everyone else is a protagonist. Even as death finally comes for these characters, some of their instincts demand that they fight back, fearful of what they know to be true. For some, like Green Mage, it's simply a last hurrah and a chance to use that fear in order to truly feel alive again, to show that they're not some formless husk of a person. These conflicts around fear and commitment are even hinted at with Red as you visit the Mirror of Truth early in the game. Red expresses hatred at themselves for always making a mess to clean up as they live their life. There's a fear surrounding being true to yourself, that people might scoff at you or push you away if you are honest with how you thought the world should be. The game plays with this idea more as Act 3 begins after the reconciliation, and the meaning behind the mirror scene becomes clear. What comes after death isn't clear, and in the spirit of that, I want to make what happens in the plot from this point on a wonderful surprise. But I can leave you with this. There's this sense that your ambitions and views take up a space that's separate from what people see you as, the person you're comfortable being. That distinction creates dissonance as you try to truly express yourself, and it makes moving forward feel like leaving yourself behind. Everhood says that moving forward is required to express yourself, to have any semblance of color and humanity in your life. It says that playing safe all the time and avoiding risks will strip you of your identity and your uniqueness, leaving you bare to the dangers of raw, untamed objectivity. I think it means that creativity, tackling a tangible goal, actively chasing fulfillment are the tools to fight against a meaningless life. That's absurdism, baby! With all that said, it's not required to push your boundaries. You can stay comfortable in your lane in this game. You don't need to free anyone. This is an indie RPG, and no indie RPG is complete without a pacifist option. Some of these ideas are only from one playthrough. I don't even know what other concepts and challenges the game will offer me when I play differently, and I can't wait to find out as I replay Everhood to collect more footage and learn more about the characters. There's so much in this game to enjoy and to take away from it. Everhood is a dear friend that wants to sit down and tell you that you have a long time and a long time after that, and to take care of yourself with humor, gusto, and sincerity. Listening to it, letting it take me on its journey is the best thing I've gotten to do last Christmas. I hope it's a journey you'll take as the new year gets rolling.